thought to be asked, at least I was found out to be asked, is the trust in pollsters. And I wanted to introduce that. I told Rita that I was going to add that to the list because in 1983 we failed to ask about pollsters. We asked about nurses and doctors and teachers. They got very high. We asked about journalists and we asked about estate agents and this sort of thing. And they were predictably pretty low. But I didn't really know what to say. When journalists said, yes, but what about pollsters? So then we added pollsters to the list, self-protection. And an interesting finding was that in our original list, we had ordinary men and women on the street. And pollsters and ordinary men and women on the street came out very close to each other. We have, except for 2 years, ever since, tracked that annually. And we intend to continue tracking that annually. It's only in Great Britain, and I don't think that particular question is asked in the same way by anybody else in any other country. If you know, I'd like to know. And one of the things that I wanted to introduce is this little booklet that I brought down, about 50 or 60, I don't know how many. I asked for a bunch of them to come down, that Ipsos has prepared, and it's being coordinated by a colleague of mine in London, Simon Atkinson. And one of the things that's in this little booklet, and it is produced internally every month, is what we're testing, particularly on things that Ipsos, and this was introduced about 6 or 7 years ago, I think, has been calling Global Advisor. And now there's a summary of what's available, and now promised that they will come into Ipsos Group. We'll continue 23 country study monthly on what worries the world, countries on the right track, wrong track, main worries facing your country today, that sort of thing. A consumer confidence index monthly, 11 questions, assessment of national economy, personal financial situation, likelihood of making major purchases. And this thing called Global Advisor, 18,000 plus or minus, online interviews in plus or minus 20 countries, sometimes varies a bit. Then annually, to do perils of perception. I don't know if you've seen Bobby Duffy's book. He's now left IPSOS-MORI and moved over to King's College London, where I have a visiting professor appointment and a fellow at King's and also at London School of Economics, where I'm chairman of the Emeritus Governors as well as a professor. And we're looking at these things in conjunction with the academic side of things in both cases. And I think that's going to be something that will be advantageous and will be available to do the kind of testing that we've heard already. Other colleagues spoke earlier. There's one thing that I think is also worth mentioning, and that's something that I pulled out a long time ago. Gary Langer here did, and that's trust in government. And he did this particular study immediately after 9/11, and how trust in government leapt up. I think it was 34 points immediately after that. But then subsequently, it went back down. One of the things that I get most irritated about is the phrase that you hear particularly from politicians, but also from business leaders, also from bankers and everybody else that you can think of. When they get a published document, survey, report that talks about trust and they're not as high as they would like to be, well, we must restore trust. And I have to keep banging, particularly on politicians, to say, there's any restoring trust. There's never been any trust. And you can tell that by one of the most interesting things that we don't, as a group, seem to ever look at, and that's political cartoons. The political cartoons, I think, are a very powerful measure of a particular kind about where trust stands, because you see politicians, Brexit, Theresa May at the moment is just getting hammered daily in paper after paper after paper when these cartoonists put visually what the public is thinking. And I think that's a missed opportunity, and we ought to think about doing that in our respective countries and internationally. I think Hungary is a very good case in point on the issue of economy versus socio-cultural rationale or correlation. And it's clearly, I think, the economy that is holding Viktor Orban up at the moment, because he's delivering and seemed to be delivering, and that seemed to be a very good thing. I had him as a student, in quotes. I was asked by the Foreign Office after the fall of Eastern Europe under Soviet control, Berlin Wall came down, to speak to a group of Thatcher Know-How funded groups of young people from Eastern European countries. I spoke to five different country groups, and the one person to this day that I can remember stood out vividly was Viktor Orban. And he was just so charismatic that it was just almost domination, probably 23 years old, 24 years old, something like that, of this elite group that had been handpicked by the British ambassadors in each country to be taken to the UK to spend some time. I had one to Kwiatkowski from Poland, who spent a couple of months with me and had also spent a couple of months in Oxford during his period of time. And that's something that has informed me along this dichotomy between cultural versus economic, and how that fits authoritarianism rather than liberal democracy.